Board of Mayor and Aldermen are called to order. It's October 15th, and this is our regular meeting. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first order of business tonight is the public hearing. Ordinance 13-13, an ordinance rescinding Ordinance 9022. This is on water and wastewater. Is there anyone that would like to speak? If not, the public hearing is closed. Number 2, Ordinance 1317, an ordinance amending Title 8 of the Springfield Municipal Code entitled Alcohol Beverages. Would anyone like to speak? If not, the public hearing is closed. Ordinance 1318, an ordinance rezoning .97 acres tract property on Ruth Street owned by G.S. Moore & Son. Is there anyone here that would like to speak? If not, the public hearings are closed. Moving on to the minutes. Approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of September 17th. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Moving on to 2.0, the legislative. 2.1, discuss and possible take action on Ordinance 1313 on the second reading. Do I hear a motion to consider?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Nutting, would you like to discuss?
Thank you. I believe that you did receive in your packet a memo from Mr. Lee Masters pursuant to Mr. Ellis's request to know which items are required under state or federal statute versus those that are simply a city requirement. And so if you have any questions on Roger's memo, I'm sure he would be glad to answer those for you.
Okay. Questions?
My reason for asking that was, I don't mind changing ordinances or policies as long as it meets the federal, as long as it's mandated by federal or state. But I don't want us putting in a lot of things that makes it more difficult for people to build or people to get sewer or whatever. What were the main issues? What did we put in there? That's what
The items that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen adopted back in 1996 are found in section 18-314, 315, and 316. And I think the intent there was to ensure that the city was now not out any cost for subdivision development. It was to lay out some requirements on how the sewer mains need to be put in the ground and who's responsible for them and how we will get held free of construction costs and that sort of thing. I mean, it was done 17 years ago, and I hadn't gone back and researched why.
Well, I can answer that question. It's really to give people more options on how they can pay and how we can extend projects. There are 3 sections in there that I believe deal with extensions, and it's just more options for people.
And if I can just kind of reiterate, since I was around then, it wasn't any punishment, but protection, as Paul said.
Okay. Any more questions?
As new sewer is built, what will be the requirement of property owners that we may pass in that construction to connect to the sewer?
the existing sewer use ordinance is kind of ambiguous from that standpoint. The existing section 18-303 really doesn't say specifically that somebody must or must not connect. Basically what it says is, I lost my place. The owner of all houses, buildings, or properties used for human occupancy, employment, recreation, or other purposes situated within the city and abutting on any street, alley, or right-of-way in which there is now located or may in the future be located a public sanitary sewer is hereby installed at required at his expense to install suitable toilet facilities and to connect such facilities directly with the proper sewer in accordance with the provision within 90 days of official notice to do so. And that's really all it says. So what I've tried to do in the revisions is to define availability. When is a sewer considered to be available? And basically availability is defined in the proposed revisions as a property that has a building on it and that property abuts an easement or a right-of-way or another property where sewers are available, then sewers are available to that property. But then I go on to say that a house that is more than 150 feet away from that sewer will not be required to connect. If a house is 150 feet or less from that sewer, then they have to connect, even if they had to put in a grinder pump. If they don't connect, but a sewer is available, then they are required to pay a monthly sewer fee as if they were connected to the sewer. So I tried to make it kind of eliminate the ambiguity as when you must and when you must not.
So if you're less than 150 feet, you can still opt out.
No, if you're less than 100 feet, you got to connect.
You got to connect.
Yes,
no matter
sir.
what. If you're more than 150 feet, you can decide not to connect, but you're going to have to pay the sewer fee like you were connected.
Correct. Yes, sir. That's the way I've written the proposal. Of course, now if there are some health hazards determined by the county health department of the state of Tennessee and they're more than 150 feet away, then we have the authority to require them to connect to the sewer.
Right, but as long as they have a properly operating septic system, they could opt out.
That is correct.
Okay. Any more questions? Ready for roll call? Ms. Watson?
Snyder?
Aye.
Hubbard?
Aye.
Sneed?
Aye.
Head?
Yes.
Ellis?
Aye.
Mason?
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
Thank you. Moving on to 2.2, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 1316 on the third and final reading.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? Last call. Roll call.
Head?
Yes.
Snyder?
Aye.
Mason?
Aye.
Hubbard?
Aye.
Ellis?
Aye.
Sneed?
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
Thank you. Moving on to 2.3, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 1317. This is the second reading. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Mr. Nutty, do you want to talk on this subject?
Well, just remind everybody, Madam Chair, that the election days will, under state law, are allowable days that you can serve liquor, and this changes that. And it also allows chilled beverages to be sold within the city of Springfield.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Is that, excuse me, is that state law? Is that state law that Paul just stated?
Election law,
Election law.
yeah, the election issue as far as when you can and can't is state law. In our law, it says you can't sell on election day, and that is not state law. And the chilled beverages are I believe, our decision. And we're trying to be competitive with other cities adjacent to us.
Any more questions? Ms. Watson, if you'll call the roll.
Ellis,
No.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Sneed,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Mason,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
passed 5-1.
Okay, moving on to Agenda 2.4, discuss and possible take action on Ordinance 1318 on the second reading.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Mr. Nunny.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to state in the heading, just to offer one small amendment, if someone would make that as part of the motion. We state in the title that it's for 8 condominium units. It's really irrelevant. It'll be whatever Mr. Moore decides that he wants to put there and can fit there on the site plan. We'll control that. So I think he just talked about that initially, but it's really irrelevant to how it's rezoned. So I would just strike out that last, for the construction of 8 condominium units.
Okay. You need to make a motion to do that.
When we approve the ordinance, I
Did you make
believe.
the motion?
I made the motion.
Second.
Would you agree
If
to
you want
change?
to include that in the motion, yes.
Yeah, agree.
Okay,
That, okay, with you some more.
you good? And this will be covered in the site plan.
Mhm.
Okay, any discussion? Any more questions? Ms. Watson, call the roll, please.
Head,
Yes.
Sneed,
Aye.
Mason,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Ellis,
Aye.
Hubbard,
Aye.
passed 6-0.
Well,
2.5, discuss and possible take action on Ordinance 1319, and this is the first reading, so Ms. Watson will read this ordinance.
Ordinance 13-19, an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2014 annual budget for the city of Springfield by amending certain general fund and utility fund budgets. Whereas it is necessary to amend the city of Springfield annual budget for fiscal year 2014 in order to meet the requirements of the city charter. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee, that City of Springfield annual budget for fiscal year 2014 is hereby amended to make necessary changes to expenditures and revenues within the funds and departments as set forth in Exhibit A attached. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Do I hear a motion to put this on the floor?
move for approval.
Okay. Second.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Nunny, do you want to speak to this first?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The state comptroller is now respectfully requesting, well, probably more than that, requiring that people, that cities do their budget amendments early in the year so they don't do it after the fiscal year has expired. That's usually that's after June 30th. So we're trying to get a jump on this. We have we are recommending 2 amendments here. As you are aware, we added the YMCA after-school program for Springfield Middle School students in the amount of $10,000 at a previous meeting, and we will also include that in a resolution coming up before this board tonight. And also the budget for dispatching was based on the formula that we will be using next year. We thought we might be using it this year, but it will be next year. Therefore, we will be making some changes with regard to revenues and expenditures and have to take more out of reserve. Now that's budget, that's not necessarily where we're going to end up, but we're going to have to base it on the fact that the county is now providing services on their end and providing for their services, and Springfield and White House are still consolidated. And hopefully next year we will consolidate with the county. So you see a couple of changes there. In 911 dispatch and revenue, you went from 958, 659, which would have included the county and White House, and now it's just White House. The 208,000 is just for White House. Also, you see the YMCA $10,000, And then on the expenditure side for dispatch salaries and benefits, those are the salaries now for just Springfield and White House, the 725,212 number. So what you have now is your budget and expenditures are being reduced from $18,378,033 to $17,862,907, and we will be using more in reserves, $641,167.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nutting. Discussion? Who's first? Questions?
You made one statement. It said like next year we were going to change the formula. Is that a pretty sure thing, or we could have done it? The county could have done it this year if they wanted to. Do you think they're going to want to next year?
Yes, I think all indications are that. We are working with MTAS and CTAS right now. The communications district is to retain them to put together a recruitment package for a director. And we've had, I know Chief Thompson has, and I've had some conversations with county officials that we're pretty assured that they will be prepared to do this July 1st.
But if we don't know, if they haven't given us instructions or their word before you prepare the budget, I would budget it the way we're doing it this year, not have to come back and add money in it later if we don't do it.
Well, we'll know, I think, well before April which direction this is going to go. So, yeah, I mean, that would be the conservative way to do it, and we may have to do it, but if the budget gets tight and we're reasonably assured that that's going to happen, we'll probably have to just plan on the formula, which would be a good thing. It's going to save us a lot of money, ultimately.
Okay. Any more questions, gentlemen? Y'all are a quiet bunch tonight.
Oh, we're just hard a few minutes.
Okay.
Hold your taters.
Miss Watson, will you please call the roll?
Hubbard.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Ellis.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
Thank you. 2.6, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 1320. This is the first reading, so we will allow Ms. Watson to read it.
Okay. Ordinance 1320, an ordinance rezoning 17.22 acres of property on U.S. Highway 41 North from RI Restricted Industrial to CS Commercial Services. Whereas the Springfield Planning Commission has recommended that a 17.22 acre site fronting on U.S. Highway 41 North in the North Industrial Park be rezoned from RI Restricted Industrial to CS Commercial Services. And whereas the city desires to sell this property, which is not large enough to be used for industrial sites, to businesses that might want to locate in the area. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Section 1. The 17.22 acre tract further described in Exhibit A attached is hereby rezoned from RI Restricted Industrial to CS Commercial Services. Section 2, all ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. 2.6, 2.7, and 2.8 all concern zoning and trying to be uniform with the zoning. Mr. Nutty, you want to discuss?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. We do not have a motion to put it on the floor.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Nutty?
Thank you. As Ms. Schneider said, these ordinances are related. They're three separate ordinances, and they're in three separate ordinances because of the having to make the exhibits and making things better understood. But basically what we're trying to do is achieve uniform zoning along our major thoroughfares, and all of the rezonings tonight will be CS, and they'll be on Memorial Boulevard, Highway 41 North, and everything on Highway 431 South pretty much is CS already.
Okay. Questions, gentlemen?
Well,
Mr. Hubbard?
Mr. James, You want to elaborate on before I start there?
This is Mr. George James.
The Planning Commission has been studying these areas for some time. Matter of fact, we've held 2 meetings where it was discussed fully. The second meeting, we had a public hearing and invited in all the property owners there that would be affected and got some discussion, and as a result of that made a change. But we've had good input on this, and the Planning Commission recommended it by a vote of 7-0 that we do it. The first area that we're talking about is Highway 41 North, and I think Paul does a good job of describing it. The property is in the North Industrial Park. It fronts Highway 41 North for a few hundred feet. It's too small for use by an industry, but would make 3 or 4 good commercial sites. The city would like to sell the property and encourage some businesses to locate in the area. This is the first area that we studied and recommended. We're proposing to go up by Evergreen Drive for 300 feet and parallel the highway down to the credit union, 300 feet off the highway, and then make that rectangle there, which contains 17 some odd acres, and change that from RI, restricted industrial, to CS, commercial services. So we had a lot of compliments on this one, no criticism. I guess you want to make a motion on the second one before I discuss it, or you want to discuss all 3 of them? Okay, let me discuss all 3 of them.
We take them individuals. Are the individual motions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Question?
We have to take it in.
Would you like to?
Just comment on what Paul said and Mr. James said on the 17 acres. Just make it more uniform, you know. We want growth there. And the south end is growing, but the north is not growing fast enough. So to bring some viable commercial venture out there, we hope to get it going.
Any more questions for Mr. James for this
Okay.
gentleman?
The
I think we're gonna call the roll.
Okay.
If there's no more questions. More questions? Okay, roll call.
Mason.
Aye.
Ellis.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder.
Aye.
6-0.
Thank you. 2.7. This is to take action on ordinance 1321, and this is the first reading. So Ms. Watson will need to read this, please.
Ordinance 13-21, an ordinance rezoning a 4.31 acre tract of property located at 2504 Memorial Boulevard and owned by the 1990 Company, LLC, from CG Commercial General and MRO Multiple Residential and Office to CS Commercial Services. Whereas the Springfield Planning Commission has recommended that a 4.31 acre site located at 2504 Memorial Boulevard be rezoned from CG Commercial General and MRO Multiple Residential and Office to CS Commercial Services. And whereas the city desires to rezone some areas on Memorial Boulevard to the CS zone to help them become prime areas for new highway commercial development in Springfield. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Section 1, a 4.31 acre tract at 2504 Memorial Boulevard and further described in Exhibit A attached is hereby rezoned from CG Commercial General and MRO Multiple Residential and Office to CS Commercial Services. Section 2, all ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you. Motion to consider?
Move for approval.
Second.
This property is located further down.
I'm sorry, Mr. James. Hold on.
Second.
Oh, excuse me.
We've got to get a second. A second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. James, you can continue.
Okay, thank you. I'm jumping the gun.
It's okay.
Here very
Just a
well.
wee bit.
I apologize.
It's fine.
This property is owned by a long-term resident of the city. It's right next to Cunningham Motors and runs up toward town to the next street, which is North something. I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, it contains 4.31 acres of property. This person has been studying the what to do with this property for several years. Matter of fact, it's called the 1990 company, so he's had it for a pretty good while, I'd say. I have talked to the owner and I've talked to his engineer, and what he would like to do is develop a strip mall, a nice restaurant, and then place some condominiums to the back of the property. And it's a pretty nice plan. He may change his mind before this gets done. But the Planning Commission studied it, and again, they recommend that this be rezoned from CS Commercial Services to CG Commercial General to CS Commercial Services by a vote of 7-0.
Okay.
So we recommend that one.
Thank you, Mr. James. Any questions for Mr. James? Mr. Hubbard?
James, does that include the house on that lot?
Yes, it does. And the house will come down.
Mr. Hubbard?
That's Hillcrest, that's the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we really, as you said, it's 7-0 because it just seemed like it's just standing there.
Mm-hmm.
And it would definitely enhance the whole area.
But it's, I think something nice could be put there, and it's a good area for the type of things he wants to build there. So maybe it would be a good commercial addition and a residential addition to our community.
Is anyone in the house at the time?
I didn't hear you, Willie.
Is anyone in that house at the time?
He rents it. It's been vacant. I don't know whether it's rented now or not.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Last time we checked, it was vacant. Now, that's the first house next to Cunningham that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's kind of on and off. Really.
I don't think the house is, well, it's pretty good shape, but it's people come and go there a lot, seems like.
It takes away from Cunningham is well kept, and the house takes away from it. And that whole strip down there is well kept. So this would definitely alleviate.
Well, if he builds everything on this lot that he plans to, it will definitely come down, and he'll have a good plan for that property.
Any more questions? Mr. Sneed?
I don't think so.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Snyder?
Aye.
Hubbard?
Aye.
Sneed?
Aye.
Head?
Yes.
Ellis? Mason?
All right.
Passed 6-0.
Thank you. 2.8, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 13-22, and this is the first reading. Ms. Watson?
Ordinance 13-22, an ordinance rezoning selected properties located on the north and south side of Memorial Boulevard between Fifth Avenue and the right-of-way of CSX Railroad from CC Core Commercial and CG Commercial General to CS Commercial Services. Whereas the Springfield Planning Commission has recommended that an area of property located between Fifth Avenue and the CSX Railroad right-of-way be rezoned from CC Core Commercial and CG Commercial General to CS Commercial Services. And whereas the city desires to rezone selected areas along Memorial Boulevard to CS Commercial Services, which is a more desirable and flexible highway commercial district than the current zoning of the area, including property zone CC Core Commercial, which is a district intended for the downtown area, and CG Commercial General, which is intended for more heavy commercial uses. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Section 1. The area along the south side of Memorial Boulevard, which includes the following parcels: tax map 80J, Group C, parcel 58, 59, 64, and 65. Tax map 80J, Group D, parcels 40, 41, 43, and 44. Tax map 80O, Group D, parcels 25, 26, 28, 29, and 30, and the area along the north side of Memorial Boulevard, which includes the following parcel. Tax map 80K, Group A, parcel 1 of the tax maps for Robertson County, Tennessee, and further described in Exhibit A attached is hereby rezoned from CC Core Commercial and CG Commercial General to CS Commercial Services. Section 2, all ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you. Motion to consider this on the floor?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay. This is the area that we looked at some time ago. You know, our core commercial area was designed for the central business district. And a lot of this area, for some reason, is zoned core commercial, which is a downtown district and does not provide parking and things like that. So we attempted to get as much of this out as we could. I found out in our public hearing from Mr. James Chandler about how it became this way. You know, the city had an urban renewal project back then and opened up some property down here, and that's when a lot of these commercial structures were built, like the Kroger's and like the little shopping center that he owns and so forth. There's one area that, due to the property owners, we want to leave in the core commercial. And that's the little mall that James Chandler, Bill Jones, Dr. Hagan, and others own, because it has so many different owners that if they ever decided to break it up, it would be very difficult with the CS zoning. So they persuaded the Planning Commission that we leave it alone for now. And so we left it in the core commercial district. But starting at the corner, we're zoning the filling station, the car wash, and across the street next to the jail, there's a lot that's zoned that core commercial too. We're zoning it CS. And then you come past where the little mall is, and the next property there is HG Hills and the little bank. We're zoning that CS. The next is a big parcel that Bruce owns, and we're zoning it CS, and we've talked to Bruce about that. We're also zoning his warehouse area CS. And then the little strip mall next to Bruce, you know, where Texas Barbershop is, we're zoning it CS as well. And then the CVS property is owned by Mrs. Moore, and she called us and said she was all for it. Of course, hers meets all the requirements of that zone anyway. It has parking and it's a real thriving business. So she was for it. And then we're going down in the next block where the Shell station is and zone that with the Dunkin' Donuts, and including the building behind it, which is vacant, and the other little building that's up there on the hill. And then as we move past Driveway Avenue, we're getting the Beth Noel Doris's business and the little eating establishment, whatever, behind that. So that's all we're proposing is on CS in that area. Most of the properties across the street are already CS. So again, the Planning Commission studied this. They listened to the owners of the little mall. They discussed it, and they decided to leave it like it was for a while because of the problem of so many owners owning the same building. So they also recommended that these areas I've discussed be rezoned CS.
Okay, thank you, Mr. James.
By 7-0.
Questions for him?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I was very impressed because I really believe that You know, it has to be a close partnership with private entities and government. I was very impressed by your requesting and bringing those owners in, because we really got very, very pertinent information. And we just didn't go half-cocked and make a decision.
Good.
We had good input from them, so it was real good. And this dynamic will sort of move us along.
That's all I have.
Any questions for Mr. James before he leaves the microphone?
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thanks for your hard work, Ms. James.
If not, we'll call the roll.
Head,
Abstain.
Snyder,
Aye.
Mason,
Aye.
Hubbard,
Aye.
Ellis, Sneed.
Aye.
Pass 5-0 and 1 abstain.
2.9, 2.10, and 2.11 all concern animal control. So we'll start with 2.9, discuss and possible take action on the proposed animal care and control policies and procedures. Do I hear a motion to put that on the floor?
So moved. Is that first reading on that? 1322?
No, not on this one. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Nutty?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. What we're considering on is we are going to review a very thorough animal care and control policy and procedures manual that Chief Thompson has put together. The next two items, Mr. Hubbard, will be action items amending the Code of Ordinances and setting fees for animal care and control that are consistent with the policies and procedures that Chief Thompson has laid out here. So if you have any questions about the animal care and control policies, Chief Thompson is prepared to answer those questions. And then what we would recommend is, if the board is comfortable with this or has any changes, that you act on this simply by a motion. It's not a resolution, it's not an ordinance. And then at that point, we can consider the other two ordinances.
Okay.
Can I?
Yes, sir.
I have to give you a feather in your hair, because those dogs were driving me crazy, whole Roseville area. So that last step of yours sort of eliminated them, you know, because it just got so bad. You know, our citizens ought to be ashamed of themselves, you know, for just letting those animals run loose. So I thank you and your staff for coming.
Chief, would you like to talk about this right now?
Well, I'll make a couple of comments as far as policies and procedures. One of the problems when I came on board and got to looking at animal control is that there were virtually no written procedures and policies. And when I talked to people that had been working there, some for several years, and asked questions about how certain things were handled, I got different answers. And when I asked how we got to that, sometimes it was really confusing. It's just that's the way we've always done things, or that's what we thought we were supposed to do. So we felt like it was necessary to be more definitive in how we're going to handle certain things, especially because we handle drugs that are controlled substances that we use for euthanasia, because we handle money, because we deal with the public on a day-to-day basis with very emotional issues, which is what animal control issues are all about. There are public safety issues involved here. So we actually created these guidelines with the existing animal control staff. I also had animal control for 25 years in Florida before coming up here, so it's not new to me to be dealing with these issues. And we've proposed some preliminary guidelines that we've provided to you that just sort of defines what animal control or animal care and control should really be about and how we should handle certain types of things. So that's the purpose and the policy part of this.
Thank you, Chief Thompson.
Stop there on this, at this point.
Questions for the chief?
Chief, I noticed that there's language that's vague about, it just says noisy animals. Who defines or who makes that determination whether it's noisy? I mean, it's kind of broad. Wouldn't that be?
Ultimately, a judge makes that decision. It's very difficult because of the types of noises that animals make. Some of the biggest problems that I've had in my experience has actually been birds. I've had people complaining about the frogs that were in the pond over at the neighbor's house, and you get all kinds of really interesting complaints on those things. Ultimately, the responding animal control officer or whatever simply goes to whoever the owner is and tries to find a reasonable solution for everybody. If they're unable to do that, then eventually we reach a stage where one citizen can actually sign a complaint and actually take this before a judge and let a judge make that decision on whether this level of noise is either acceptable or not acceptable. So ultimately a third-party judge, or I should say an unbiased judge, makes that determination.
Well, if you get a call about frogs again and you're out there trying to catch them, call me because I'm going to videotape this. Now, another question.
Yes, sir.
Vice Mayor, Vice Chairwoman. Now, I've got chickens and cows. He's got cows in the city. There's 3 people in my neighborhood that have chickens.
And I've seen some. Right around town.
Metro Nashville just rescinded an ordinance to allow chickens. It's a big thing. You see it on there now. Communities want fresh eggs instead of store-bought. How does that play into this? Because it's pretty straight language, no chickens. I mean...
Well, now, the policy doesn't address that. We'll move on to the ordinance itself. The ordinance itself, currently, the language that's in here addressing that issue, I don't think has changed. That's the same language that we have had in our code, our city code all along. So if it's something that you wish to change, that can be changed, but that simply came from the existing language that was already there dealing with chickens.
I remember when the ordinance, the first ordinance of any animal control passed, the question was raised, was anything grandfathered that was already there? And if you can go back and look at the tape, because I remember it was said, yes, we got them, they're grandfathered. Is that, I mean, how do you feel about that?
Mr. Sneed, one thing, we discussed it before. Chickens we can tolerate because they're not too loud. Roosters, now that's another problem. That's where your noise level comes.
Right, that's right.
You know, from the rooster part. Now cows itself, only cows that raise a bunch of cane if you have a certain breed of bulls that might get loud.
What if you sell the calf
You
off?
take the babies away. Mr. Nutty.
I was just talking about the roosters. That's the foul noise that you're talking.
I would say that, as you know, that our demographic has changed in the last 10 or 12 years, and chickens are an out-of-control problem because of cultural changes in the demographic of our community. And people have to understand what is expected in this country as far as what people want to keep in their residences and how they expect the neighborhood to be kept up. And that's kind of a problem. If you want to keep chickens, and I would suggest that you go ahead and really make, some issues as far as how they're going to be confined and where they're going to be, if you would want to consider that at some point.
I was driving around on North Walnut Street and saw some chickens running around. So we can have them in the city.
Don't walk right up to the street there. They won't cross it though.
And it did not. And I grew up with chickens.
Well, I'm going to give you a good example. In San Marcos, Texas, okay, they can have them, okay, but you got to be pinned up, well kept. Now I have no problem if you got them pinned up, well kept. You change that chicken manure where no odor and stuff will come out. I can live with that, but just let them run loose, like Paul said, like the cultural change that we had on 21st and 22nd, with all these big banty and fat roosters running around. No, that's a different ball game.
Okay. Yes, sir.
If I may, relative to the grandfathering issue, I think that certainly is something that this body would make that decision as far as how you would want us to continue enforcing this. If you want us to enforce it with the grandfather provision, I think that basically would be up to this group to make that decision. If you want us to enforce it totally and completely, that's a separate issue, and I'm sure that Mr. Balthrop may want to chime in on that. But relative to that specific area, it would seem to me that you would make that decision whether things would be grandfathered or whether we would simply say on this date forward, we will not do this.
Now the grandfathering issue, I'm having problems because just because you let them run loose for 30 years, understand me, so we really have to touch it. I mean, we have to try to tweak it. We have to sort of tweak it to make sure it's uniform where it won't offend me, because I don't want nobody's chickens, understand me, disturbing my property. Just like nobody's dogs disturbing my property.
Right.
So, you know, you can have them, but have some order there.
Well, in this policies and procedures, chickens are not involved.
Correct.
So do we want to take action and vote on the policies and procedures, or do you want to table this until next month so you can read it more?
May I ask Mr. Nutt a question?
Yes, sir.
Could we insert an amendment with the chickens, or you think we need to just discuss it over?
Well, all we want to do here, the policies are kind of the basis for the other ordinances. The ordinances that we're recommending are essentially really not changed much at all. We're changing some fees, we're changing where some things are located, but we're really not changing too much. As we had the chickens and the animals that are not allowed, they've been in there for some time. So when you get to that ordinance, that would be the appropriate time to make a change. It's not really part of the policies and procedures. This is talking about what the animal control officers are going to do as far as handling their procedures and policies primarily.
And this is because we've not had any guidelines
Correct.
before.
And let me throw this out. I went in a house yesterday, and you know those Burmese breed of pythons?
Yeah.
Some irresponsible idiot has 2. And right now they're about, I guess, 4 to 5 feet long. So get ready for that.
I make a motion to defer this one meeting.
Motion's been made.
I second it.
Okay. We need to vote on it now, right? Roll call, please.
Head,
Yes.
Sneed,
Abstain.
Mason.
Is this what to defer or what?
To defer.
This is
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Ellis,
Aye.
Hubbard,
Aye.
passed 5-0 and 1 abstain.
So I guess we won't talk about 2.
It's not. Unless
Well,
you want to.
Okay.
Excuse me, just for my clarification, does that mean all the animal control issues or just the policies and procedures are being deferred?
Yes, sir, it'll be all of it.
All of it? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on down to 2.12, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 1320, a resolution rescinding Resolution 13-17 in its entirety. Do I have a motion to put it on the floor?
So move.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Nutty?
Thank you, Ms. Schneider. This is really the same resolution as 1317 with the change that the Robertson County Family YMCA is part of the resolution. So we have to do this under state law. So that's why we're rescinding one and passing a new one.
Any questions, discussions? Gentlemen? If not, Ms. Watson? Call the roll.
Mr. Hubbard,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Sneed,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
Ellis, Mason,
Aye.
passed 6-0.
Thank you. 2.13, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 13-21, a resolution in the support of Robertson County requesting to become a member of the National Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. Do I hear a motion to put it on the floor?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Nutty?
Thank you. As the board knows, the city of Springfield and White House and Portland and Millersville are all part of the Nashville Area MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which helps decide how federal and state funds are expended in counties and the members of that organization. And although we've been a member for more than a decade, we don't have particular weight in this organization because of our size. And so we are competing for highway projects with much larger communities and much faster growing communities. Also, Robertson County has been placed into the greater Nashville Middle Tennessee Rural Planning Organization, which they have been here for a number of years, with counties to the west of us, so we have very little in common from an economic development standpoint or a developmental standpoint. So the MPO over the years really had no method of adding new members. And the county petitioned a few years ago to become a full member of the MPO, which would give us now the weight of the entire county, so that we're looking at not just highway improvements inside Springfield, for example, 431 South. We only have the authority to act on what's inside the city of Springfield, and everything to the Davidson County line we have no impact on, and the county is not a member of the MPO. So this will give us a lot more influence. Also, the city of Columbia is an urbanized area, and they in Murray County are applying as well. So this resolution is simply our statement of support that the executive board or the full board of directors of the Nashville MPO accept Robertson County as a member. And Mayor Carneal represents the city on this board, and I am the alternate on that board. And so fully recommend that our board support this resolution.
Okay, thank you. Discussion? Questions for Mr. Nutty?
What's the cost of our membership to this organization?
$3,000 something a year, I think. It's based on population. I want to say 3,400, somewhere in that area.
Mr. Ellis?
Explain this to me. We're going to pay, and I may not have followed it just right. This is for Robertson County, right?
Yes.
The press did. And then we're going to pay $3,000. What do they pay?
Well, everybody who is a member, who is a voting member, the city of Springfield will remain a voting member. That's for the privilege of voting. So what you want is every city to be on that board and be a voting member, and I think it's every city of 5,000 or more. Greenbrier is going to have to request to be a member and sit on this board and pay. So the county will pay the unincorporated fee for everybody who isn't represented by a city. And they will have their, I would imagine Mayor Bradley would be the representative of the county on the board of directors at that point.
More questions? If not, will Ms. Watson call the roll?
Mason.
Aye.
Ellis.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder.
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
Thank you. 3.0, the administrative part of the agenda. 3.1, discuss and possible take action on the adjustment of retail electric rates.
So move.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Gardner?
The fuel cost adjustment for November 1st will be a 0.5%, roughly a 0.5% increase for the month of November.
Okay. Thank you for bringing us the bad news.
Senior citizens don't stand a chance.
Okay. Any questions? Ms. Watson, call the roll.
Snyder.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Ellis.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
Thank you. Of course, we do pick on these two gentlemen, but they are just the bearer of good news or bad news. 3.2, discuss and possible take action on the adjustment of the monthly gas rates. Mr. Riddle.
They're up slightly, about 1.59%, which is less than a penny. So it's just that time of year.
Sure.
So.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Ellis.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
Thank you. 3.3, discuss and possible take action on a parade application submitted by Ms. Snap of Village Green Homeowners Association to hold a trunk or treat.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion, questions?
What are they gonna close now? Part of it's gonna be blocked off. Am I reading this correctly?
Yes.
Golf club circle between 107 and 125.
Chief?
Yes, we've talked to them about that. They're going to talk to the neighbors, that sort of thing, so there are no problems there. They'll also leave room for emergency access to be able to get through if we need to be able to get fire trucks or emergency vehicles through there. So this is their preliminary plan, and we'll work with them to make sure that it works and it still allows access and safety.
And you have signed off on this, Chief?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. Any more questions for him? Roll call, please.
Ellis.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Pass 6-0.
Thank you. 3.4, discuss and possible take action in regards to financing the city's contribution for the library. Mr. Nutty. Oh, I'm sorry, we got to put it on the floor.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you.
I didn't hear the second. Who?
What is it? Okay. I believe this is for our information and we can decide whether to take action or not. Mr. Nutty.
That is correct. Thank you, Ms. Schneider. What I've provided to you, as you know, we discussed with the library board and the library building committee a few months ago that they are raising money and they anticipate having plans approved within a month or so, and also having enough money to be able to bid this project, which right now is going to be building the entire two-story structure, but leaving the second floor unfinished. So the library will, once the two-story structure is completed, the current library will be moved into the new first floor section while the old library is being renovated. And then for several years now, the library were operating solely on the first floor. So wanted to give you an update on where the pledges were, what the schedule is. When they were here a few months ago, we were looking at February, and sounds like a pretty early date right now. I don't know if we'll be ready to bid and have all the money in by then, but I would anticipate sometime this spring. And in our budget, we've been carrying for years now, in the capital improvement budget, $1 million that we would be borrowing, and the plan is to borrow. We have no money in this year's budget to pay principal and interest because we figured we would be borrowing late enough in the year that there would not be any principal and interest due. I know your example says otherwise, but that's just an example. And we would require any payments to be made after July 1st so that it could be part of the new budget. So we've asked our, we've asked our financial advisor, Stevens, to take a look at it. $1 million is a pretty small amount to go for a general obligation bond issue. And they suggested to use a state statute which allows you to have a 12-year capital outlay note for $1 million, and you'll notice that you've got $1 million and I think you've got less than $20,000 in issuance costs. So at this point in time, they think that is probably the best option for us. And then you have the proposed debt service schedule in there that we would have to incorporate, the first year's principal and interest, not in the current year budget for 2014, but the 2015 budget, which began after July 1st, 2014. So this is just on for discussion. We have several months to decide what we're going to do, but we will have to, if we go this route, and if we have a bond route or a TML route, we will have to pass a resolution authorizing this. So it might be a good idea, to get some idea what our option is going to be by next month or December at the latest, and pass the appropriate resolution so that we'll be ready when the money has to be available. And of course, we're managing everything. We've told everybody all the money has to be in the account before we bid anything. And if the money that we have in the account won't cover the bid, then we're going to have to turn down the bid and bid it again at another time.
Questions for Mr. Nutting? Now, we don't have to take action tonight,
That's
but we
correct.
probably need to be well informed for next month. Mr. Head?
Paul, are there any more general obligation notes that we can tie this in? We might spread this out.
No, sir. I think we've got everything that we've borrowed on the last one is committed at this point.
I'm saying, is anything new coming on the horizon that we'll be having a new?
Well, actually, we've taken care of the roof. We've taken care of animal control. I can't see of anything particularly large at this point, unless you wanted to do some additional sidewalks or things like that. The other big project that we've got remaining, that we've got the MLK Park. It's a fairly expensive project to build the ball fields there to complete that project, and we're hoping to get some sort of grant to go along with that whenever we chose to complete that project, but that's not on the immediate horizon.
And the money for the water and sewer department renovation, is that already, has that been borrowed?
Yes.
It's out there.
Yes.
Any additional on the sewer project that's going to be coming up?
Yes. Yeah, we'll have to, we have pretty much committed everything on the first round, which is about $7.2 million. And so to get our next project on there, we will have to borrow money for sewer.
Can this be tied in with that?
It can. You want to go GO bond?
When are you expecting that?
Well, we would have to probably do that in the spring as well, to keep on going and meet the schedule. But we're looking at some other routes too in there. There's some state revolving fund money from the state that is kind of set up like a bond, but it's a state program, and you pay interest rate and principal and interest every year on that. It's about 1% money, which is better than a bond issue. And so we couldn't tie the library to that if we went the state revolving loan fund. If we went TML or we went a general obligation bond, we could tie the library to that bond or that loan.
Is that a fixed rate?
You can go fixed rate now with TML. They do have an option. As a matter of fact, our last one for the gas issue that we entered in a couple years ago. And the nice thing about their fixed rate option too is you can prepay at no penalty. Save some interest.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but a project of this magnitude, I mean, it's obviously a 20-year plus benefit project, and I don't have a problem spreading it out.
Okay. Mr. Sneed? Mr. Ellis?
Yeah. I will go back. We cannot put the center roof and things in this. Could we add that $700,000 to this bond if we're trying to?
Well, that's already, those bonds were issued in February.
Okay.
And that money's committed, the contract has been signed. So everything that we've committed to the projects, we had the sewer rehab, we had the new water wastewater facility, we're going to have the animal control facility, we're going to have the roof and HVAC at the center, and that's going to be about all we're going to be able to do. Even though we want to do some sidewalks and trails in the park, to get these other ones done that are more costly, we're going to have to probably reallocate that money.
Mr. Mason? Mr. Hubbard?
You said something and we have to be thinking about when you mentioned MLK. You know, we have the soccer and that baseball situation for this town is really just, you know, it's insurmountable. So sooner or later we're gonna have to bite the bullet and finish those projected baseball and soccer fields in MLK, because we just got, we're just, and I'm not trying to get no brownie points, but we just, you know, we're putting gray hair upon gray hair on his head because he's trying to shuffle them, understand me, and you know, it's just growing.
They are all full.
Could you give me half a comment? Am I right? Am I right?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. So do we want to put this off until next month and see what the costs are?
I'd be glad to do further research and see what the options are. We have requested qualifications for a firm that would have to administer a state revolving program, and we'll just have to see what's involved with that. I'll have TML called me today on an option with regard to the sewer, but they could also do a library project. And obviously the GO bonds are always open. Interest rates are still low. And also on the sewer bonds particularly, and it's done more in utilities, but sometimes they go to 30 years. That's not uncommon. We have 40-year bonds for water that we're still paying on that we'll be paying off in the next 3 years or so. So we do have some options on the water sewer side. So we'll continue to investigate what the options are.
Thank you. We'll move on to 3.5, discuss and possible take action on the creation of the Utility Construction Department. Mr. Nutty?
Well, I'm going to defer to Alderman Sneed. He requested that this be on the agenda.
Mr. Sneed?
At last meeting, the question was raised at to the Water Sewer Department, why are we not doing some of our own repairs? Not repairs, but is it possible, let me rephrase, was it possible, I think, was the question, to do some of the replacement of the sewer pipes ourselves rather than having it all contracted to an engineering firm? And it was answered that they're more in the service department. And that's the question that's been raised, and the same answer given in the past on other issues when we've contracted out this projects for water and sewer. But we've never had a project of an estimation of 23 to 40 million.
No, sir.
And we've got 137 miles of sewer line. Is that right, Mr. Lee Masters? And I would like to make a motion that we create a new department entitled the Department of Utility Construction. It would have a term of 1 year, renewable by this board on an annual basis. It would create, report to Paul Nutting and he would forward reports to us on a weekly basis of their progress and expense reports, so we can keep since it is something we'd have to review in another year, keep us close abreast on it. It would be financed out of the bonds that we'll be issuing for the sewer repairs that we're going to have to, that we all know we're about to get into. The current engineering firm will continue with some of the projects that they outlined at the special meeting the other day to get us out of the trouble with the state. They'll continue with that, but parallel, this utility department will parallel repairs on the existing lateral lines and some of the smaller projects. I'd like for it to consist of, start out with consist with 3 personnel, 1 manager, and if some of these personnel come from other departments, make a lateral move, they'll have all full rights to roll back to their current, former positions if we choose not to continue with this department if it doesn't work out.
Okay. So you put that in a form of a motion.
Right. And I mean, I can continue on this, or you want me to just get the gist of it and get with Paul in details and put it in something for him? Because I'm trying to pitch it to you, not just the idea, but there's other things that I don't think the department managers in this particular department I think they should be exempt from staff meetings. I want them to focus solely on just repairing sewer lines. I don't think that they need to be in the staff meetings worried about park and recreation things. I want them specifically just to concentrate on repairing sewer lines.
Okay. So you put this motion on the floor, so we either need to discuss it tonight or...
I'll rephrase it. Since I've pitched it a little bit, I'll rephrase the motion that we create a Department of Utility Constructions for a term of 1 year, which this board will review for renewal, and it will be financed from the bonds that we already know that we're going to have to use for sewer repair construction.
Okay. Do I hear
a second to get it on the floor for discussion?
Okay. It is on the floor now.
Okay. I can understand where you're going, but we need a more structured outline of the participants. I have to disagree with them not being brought into general staff meetings, because I do not want to be over any board that doesn't have a cohesiveness, okay? So we can't let them run outlaw. They got to come to regular staff meetings and let the city manager do what he got to do. I'm thinking about, the particulars of it. Construction department. You got to have your engineers. You got to have your equipments. Okay, you have to have project managers. So this could be a heavy duty department.
I'm thinking big.
Well, I know you're thinking big. Okay, I'm glad you're thinking big, but let me run back to it. Let me run back to it real quick. That's when, we should have considered, a little more money, okay? And I'm gonna shut up and let Paul go ahead and do some elaboration.
Okay.
Mayor, can I follow up on that?
Yes.
First of all, a little more money. This is your utility rates. This isn't property tax. The idea of them being exempt from staff meetings, Paul answered this question. If we hire the engineering firm, do they attend the staff meetings? Because that's their primary focus, sewer repair. I want this department to be primary focus, sewer repair.
No, a city entity cannot be exempted from staff meetings.
Let's let Mr. Nutting address the question.
Look, the reason we have contractors is because we have to get a lot of work done in a hurry. Whenever the city manager says you got to meet with the city manager, you got to meet with the city manager.
That's it.
Now, how I run an organization, staff meetings are for me. They're not for anybody else. They're for me getting on a weekly basis what everybody's doing and coordinating. Everybody who works for the city works for the city manager. And it is my management style. We are going to have staff meetings and everybody's going to be in it. Here's what we need to do. Roger's already said at the last meeting that we're going to get a new jet back rotor truck. One of the things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to maintain these lines. This is something that we can do with the equipment and the capability that we have. We are going to have to come in the next year's budget and ask for 3 more people, because that's what we've told the EPA we were going to do, and that's what we're required to do. So that is a continuously around that's all these guys are going to be doing. Okay, and that's at a crew leader level. Roger Lee Masters is over everything over water, wastewater, so he goes to staff meetings. Nobody else attends staff meetings. And here's the problem. They're not going to be capable of doing, they can't line a sewer line with the in situ form. They can't line the manholes. They don't have the technology to be able to do that a company has. Yeah, they may be able to remove some pipe out of the ground, but that's a very slow process. And what will happen in this case is we will be deteriorating the sewer lines faster than we can repair them. The fact is, when you have a system like this, you've got to have a lot of people, you got to put them on in a hurry, you got to fix it. And then I do agree with partially what Mr. Sneed is saying. I mean, there's no doubt about it, these things have to be maintained on a regular basis. But when we're talking about several $100,000 a year, then that's an easier thing for a smaller crew to manage than, but the reason that we have to have the engineering contract and whatever, it takes dozens of people in the field to get this done. If we don't get this done in a hurry, let me tell you, building will stop. because they will not allow anything on that does not have capacity. So, yeah, it'd be wonderful if we had a construction department, but that's not what cities do. We maintain, and that's what most cities do. There may be, I think, like constructing new is always certainly, because we do some of that, and that would make sense. But the thing is, the problem in this case is so great that if we don't put a lot of people on this, we're not going to be able to make these repairs and accomplish what we need to accomplish. So it's really a budget issue. I mean, your other issue, where are you going to pay for this? Even 3 men that we need next year for maintenance, we're going to have to, it's got to be a rate issue.
Okay.
Yeah, Mayor.
Alderman Sneed.
Paul, thanks for answering that question, spending 3 times the amount of time I did trying to pitch the project to try to kill it. I knew that you was going to respond in that manner, and I would hope that you would try to support the ideas of this board, not try to shoot them down. Now, it's a big project, and there's no reason we need to pay high-paid, high-priced engineers to fix lateral lines.
Well, it won't be the first time you didn't listen to me, and I'm afraid that we're in this fix because we listen to people that we shouldn't have listened to. And this board has had plenty of advice over the last 18 years from me about what we should have been doing. And here's where we are. So they're not kidding at the EPA.
No.
You fix this thing and you'll find out what happens.
Well, you're not
here.
listening to what I said. I said keep the engineer firms to get us out from under the state mandate, let them do the project they pitched the other day, which was the priorities. I'm talking about the lines that run from the street to the house, which have trees that are broken the lines that are letting most of the water run in. That's a project that we all know that's got to be done. I'm not a big fan of what the engineering firm pitched about lining, pushing this plastic resin up in a pipe, and we've had an example of it here. Tree roots that were cut out of the line or removed from that line, they're going to punch right back through that. That is not going to be hard enough to resist a tree root. The money is going to be there. It's going to be renewed each year. See how it goes. We've got the track hose. We've got the dump trucks. We've got the equipment. We've got civil engineers. We've got a brand new engineering department. And you're telling me we can't do something?
Okay, I have a question for you. So the money would come out, of course, out of the utilities. So we're going to raise the rates again, correct?
We all know they're too low. We all know from the recent meetings and we've paid people to come here and tell us that they're too low and giving us an aberration chart of knowing where they expect it to be to pay for this project.
Okay, well, let's go around the room. Mr. Head, any questions? So we can move on to a vote.
No questions. It's an interesting concept, but I see a lot of capital involved, and to just commit to it for a year would be, just equipment costs, because equipment we've already got in place, I assume that Roger, that's used maybe not on a daily basis, but as needed for repair. So that's going to create a problem if a construction crew's got a track hoe and you need it for repair, it's got to come off the construction site and go. So priorities and lots of issues there, but I guess I do agree with the concept. We probably need to look at doing some of our own construction, but
I agree that we probably should move that way. Mr. Ellis?
I like the idea. There's a couple of things that came out, and after I make my statement, when everybody finishes, I want to make a motion to defer it at least a month, and because first of all, I don't know whether getting a new department is that part of, is our charter say anything about departments or not?
You can create departments.
We can create departments. Okay. One thing that was said was that Paul would be in charge of these people. Ultimately, he would, and at that point, Paul can have them to come to any meeting that he would want at any time that he would want. I just think there are too many things that we don't have an answer to, and it needs to be studied and be sure that what we're doing is something that we can do. I'm not sure how to do it, but I think the idea is fine, and what Mr. Sneed's saying is something that we can look at it would be better if we weren't under the gun of the federal people.
Yes.
But anyway, I'll
Thank
make
you.
I'll make my motion after everybody finishes.
Mr. Mason?
You know, I don't have a lot to say, but don't know a lot. But this is what we paid the city manager to do, and I think he has the right idea. I'm with what he wants to do about the situation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hubbard?
Just skipped over me, but I'll excuse you.
I went to the end and came back.
No. Father, I'll put it down.
Okay.
Two things that we must remember, and this is sort of solidify what Mr. Ellis said. The charter gives the day-to-day operation, personnel direction solely to the city manager. So I got to reinforce that. Secondly, what Paul says, to interfere with what we already have in progress, understand, will slow us, okay? You need a lot of people. As Ms. Ellis said, we got a deadline. We need a lot of people, a lot of trained people, a lot of experts and stuff, and put it there. What Mr. Head said, have a tracker on this job, needs some maintenance work on another job would impede and slow down the process. So since we already have that coordinated effort in progress, okay, let's stick with it. Let's just don't change. Hold up now. Let's don't change in the middle of the stream, okay? And that's what you're asking to do. Because,
Okay, we're going to
now I got one more minute now, Mr. Chairman, I'll finish, okay? This horse is already out of the stall, and it's mandated federally, and we have to comply because I don't want to be paying any more fines.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. You can finish.
Mr. Hubbard's talking about not wanting to pay any more fines, that this is being mandated. Nobody's saying stop what we're already doing. I'm saying create a department that runs parallel with what we contract piecemeal to the engineers to do. But let them do the more complicated projects, not the whole gamut of the project, which are the small lateral lines that you can pay plumbers that you can find in the local telephone book to do.
And my response to you have the drum major who's already orchestrated this. Trust him and let him run with it.
Okay.
He was asked the question whether he could do this. He said no.
Mr. Nutty?
Well, the service lines can be lined, and it is a very effective fix, and it's a very proven fix. I think one of the things, somewhere in our water wastewater operation, would it be good to have a construction crew? Yes. For new stuff, I think that makes perfect sense. But here's what you need to know. You're going to have to, right now, by what you've told the EPA, and Mr. Sneed is suggesting a pilot program of 3 people, and I think pilot programs are good ways to go and good way to test the water. But we are going to have to hire 3 people right now permanently on a maintenance crew just to keep all the sewer lines clean. And that's all they're going to be doing. So you've already got that commitment. You just need to know that this is a budget issue, and you need to look at it. And that's coming, because that's got to get in the queue first. And the fact is that service line, everything that affects the inflow and infiltration is going to have to be addressed through this contract. Of course, the engineers, their job is to evaluate, and of course, it's the contractors who actually make the repairs. And we do, anyway, we have some funding in depreciation, which we need more of, but we can always independently do work to repair lines that we feel that we can, that aren't going to take a lot of time and aren't going to hold us up in the regular maintenance. But my only point being is that basically cities are geared to be maintenance. They're not for heavy construction or particularly large volumes of construction that have to be done in a hurry. That's my only point.
Okay. Thank you.
Motion to defer.
Second.
Okay. A motion on the floor to defer. Roll call.
Second by me.
We'll defer and set that back, Mr. Nettie.
We're deferring Mr.
Oh,
Sneed's
deferring
request to
his
have a
request.
utility.
Oh, okay, I thought you were talking about the real.
No.
Okay, I got it.
This is for the utility department, please.
Roll call, please.
Mason.
Aye.
Ellis. Sneed.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder.
Aye.
Pass 6-0.
We have to go back.
So what's we deferred it, now what's going to happen to it?
We'll talk about it some other
Go
time.
argue with Paul.
And Mr. Sneed and.
I think we probably,
Get together.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
and
It is
Mr.
a
Sneed can bring
budget
some
issue.
numbers around this.
Yeah.
When we talk about it,
You
budget.
want to know what the.
We still love you. You gonna talk about it, we'll talk
Okay.
about it again.
All right, we're gonna move on to
Very
3.6. Discuss and possible take action on the sale of Woodard Hall building. Mr. Nutting, were you gonna refer to Ms. Holt?
I will probably defer to Ms. Holt.
She is in charge of Woodard Hall.
Well, I feel like we've been down this road before. This is like the third or fourth time this year. This, however, is the first time that we've actually had a potential buyer. So someone is really very interested. I don't know if they've talked to you or not. But you have the memo in the packet that gives you a lot of information about the tenants, square footage, the last appraisal, which was 12 years ago, what the tax records have it. All I'm asking is that we make a decision, you all make a decision one way or the other, because I'm getting ready to spend $128,000 plus. And we need, I really would like a decision, because we do, the potential buyer has good plans for the building. It would be a real asset to the downtown square, and they would take care of the building if they get it, or anyone else. And it would really be a major benefit for our downtown square, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Yes.
Question. So all these volunteer programs will have to sort of move elsewhere?
Well, yes. Well, there are the two that have leases would stay until their leases expire. One is next August, and the other one is November the 15th. I would assume that they would want them to, because they have plans to put businesses in there. So you have more of a tax base, and then the building would be bringing in more taxes as well as the businesses. So that's the option.
What is the appraised value of that building?
Well, we haven't had an official one since 2001, and at that time it was, I think it was $335,000. It was as an income building, which it still is, but not as much so. But the tax records have it at $374,000.
Questions, Mr. Head?
This building belongs to the general fund.
It does, and the last time I brought this to you, I think it was in February, the general fund owed the gas department, at that time, $241,000. Now it's down to $236,000. Okay. So the sale would not benefit the general fund, but we will be spending money from the general fund.
And we'll be spending money on the air conditioner?
Air conditioning, roof, and carpeting.
Mr. Sneed?
I make a statement that we spend money on this building on an annual, semi-annual basis. It's not making any money, but it's still something that we need. It's in the general area of City Hall, and we've expanded on it. And it's not a matter of whether we want to spend $157,000 over there. It's whether we're going to utilize it for expansion of the core area of City Hall. And if y'all have a better idea about where you want to move or expand City Hall, or where this potential new business is going to park, because if we sell it, they're going to expect some parking. And how much parking spot, Ms. Head, Ms. Holt, does that building have?
It's got the same parking as the center and City Hall and all those other buildings.
I mean, what property belongs, parking
There's no parking that belongs to
No
it.
parking to all of that building. So all of the new businesses and all this new
Right.
revenue that they're expecting to draw towards this are going to take up parking that we already know is a full parking lot just doing business here, and the nonprofits over there.
for somebody to walk.
That's the business. If
that's
someone
retail.
chooses to buy it, they know that. That's going to be fully
Just
distributed.
like Crossroads.
Well, we had somebody buy a place over there on the other side of Square. It's going to open a restaurant. You go look now, they're opening up the art gallery at where we just had a controversial deal. So they bought it and they're not doing what they said they was going to do.
Mr. Ellis?
Well, I've said for a long time, if we're not going to use it and it can't pay its way, we need to sell it. Now, I think this board would have to decide what price we would ask for it. I think we use the appraisal and then move up. But the one thing Mr. Steed has said, that's exactly correct. If this city is going to ever expand and use that, then we need to keep it. But otherwise, I'd just say sell it.
Mr. Hubbard? Came right down the table.
Looking at the vision there, sir, Mr. Nutty, what is your vision for that?
Well,
That's important. What is your vision for that?
well, I don't think it really has any long-term use for the city. I mean, you can put a few offices in it. It's an older building. It's not really, the way the floor plan's laid out now, it's just going to continue to decentralize what we have. Probably in the future, what the city needs to do is years after I'm not in this position, there will probably have to be a bigger city hall built somewhere and putting some more consolidation with some of these departments where practical. It's just right now, I mean, we aren't making any money on it. It's a liability. It's a beautiful building, and I hope that someone will take care of it. If they're not going to take care of it, then I'm all for doing what we can to keep it in good shape until someone can come along that will have a use for it. But you know, right now I'm leaning towards selling it.
Okay.
Well, my response would be what Mr. Nutting says.
Okay.
Since we pay him to think for us.
Mr.
Right,
Mason?
Mr. Mason?
Sell, baby, sell.
How much money, Ms. Holt, are we spending on this building a year to maintain it?
Well, over the last 3 years, and I didn't get the records, I didn't get them updated, we were just about breaking even. But the average over the last 5 years, we were bringing in about $30,000, and we were averaging expenses of about $53,000. And of course, that average is going to change if we keep it and spend the $128,000. And we're not getting $30,000 now, we're getting more like $22,000, $23,000. So we're definitely losing money.
Okay.
Madam Chairman,
Sir?
to really cut it short, I make a motion that we sell Woodard Hall.
Motion to sell.
At auction with the minimum?
Whoa,
Yeah.
yeah.
With-
He's right. Mr. Sneed's right.
Pardon?
Continue.
I make a motion that we sell Woodard Hall around the estimated value of what, $335,000?
That was 12 years ago.
That was 12 years ago.
Yes, I think our
Tax
city
rate.
attorney can address.
Tax records are
How-
$374.
Well,
Best
at a
method.
marketable price.
No.
Let him address it.
Okay. Mr. Barr?
Well, there's no law that requires you to sell this in any manner that I'm aware of. Real estate is considered unique. It's not like if you're selling personal property and have to do bidding and all that sort of thing. And I'm not sure we have somebody's interested, but I don't think he or she has made any kind of offer. I don't know if you want to have bids and starting it at a certain number or just set a price. It's up to the board. It really is.
Would it be better to have a current appraisal done?
You might. That would make sense to get a current appraisal and go for that price, but to me.
So in the motion to sell at the current appraisal, would you buy that, Mr. Nutty?
Well, what I would do in this case is let people know that we're committed to selling it, hopefully if we can get the right price, and be open to offers. and just see who makes you the best offer, because I think that's what Mr.
But what I
Balthrop
wanna
has
do-
indicated. There's no, you have some flexibility on
We
it.
just want to give you and Ms. Holt the direction to sell it.
There you go.
That's what this
And bring
motion's
us
about.
back.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to have to make the final decision when we actually sell it anyway.
Right,
It's
but
going to have to be.
we're going to give you authority to look for potential buyers.
Okay, to accept offers, is that?
Yes, sir, that's my motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to accept offers.
Second.
Second. Any more discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, yes, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
If we were successful, if Mr. Hubbard's motion to sell the building is successful, and it's put up for sale, the potential buyer's going to expect probably some parking space. And the code requires when new businesses open up that there's a certain amount of parking to go along with that, because it's going to be changing its ownership, changing its usage. So parking may be an issue to go along with it. Are you prepared to offer them some, or are they just supposed to park out on the street?
Parking's not an issue, is it?
Well, it's in the
In retail.
CC. I mean, it's street parking. It doesn't, it's an existing, people are buying and selling things on the square all the time. You don't
Hamilton.
have any, the deal is, I mean, if someone feels like they could use that building and they're going to give us a respectable price for that building, then we need to have the option to be able to at least explore that offer, and that offer's got to be brought to you anyway. So, they'll have to decide, but we're not going to provide them any parking. I mean, that's just...
Can we restrict our parking lot to just City Hall business?
Well, I don't think you can with all the other businesses
The
that are
other
on there.
buildings adjoining that, they use the parking lot. We don't use, the City Hall does not use the front parking lot except for visitors. City employees are not allowed to park there.
Right.
Unless they're over
65.
So city employees don't use it. And the buildings over here do use it. Of course, we've got over 1,000 parking places within several blocks.
That's
around
what I was
here.
gonna
We
say.
know the deal. The parking's there. People don't want to walk more than a couple of feet. But you've got all the street parking out front. And, I mean, I still say if they're willing to buy it knowing all of that, then that's their issue.
I just don't want to conflict with the parking of City Hall and our business. And if someone sells, we're playing a cat and mouse game about who's going to buy it and what they're going to do with it. We don't know. We're trying to make a decision based on
But
a hunch.
It's
the thing,
maintenance.
we have to look at it when you come to parking, just like you said. There's a couple of blocks, about 2 blocks. There's about, 500 or 600 parking spaces
Like she said.
by Commerce Union
It's
Bank.
unrealistic.
Well, and this may
Is
not
that
be a
what you saw
business.
you referring to?
Consider that parking lot this big.
Right at 100.
It kind of depends too on what kind of business is going into the building, whether they'll need very much parking or not. So that's kind of undetermined.
That's the only statement I've got about it.
Mr. Ellis?
I have a question and a statement.
Yes, sir.
My question is, when this building was originally purchased, the gas department paid for it. Am I correct?
That's right.
And if we sell it, the money goes to the gas department, is that correct?
Yeah, I think what happened is when the building was renovated, at that point, the general fund took the building over from the gas department. So that was in the early, like 94, somewhere in the early, mid-90s, I guess. And so, for some reason, the general fund wanted the building. And so that's why we still owe the gas department about $236,000.
It was 95, 96 right
Well,
there.
you answered my question because I was going to say the gas department need to keep it up.
Mr. Riddle's shaking his head.
Trying to get back to them.
We got rid of it.
Well, okay, so you're still saying even though they shifted to general fund, that they're going to get the money?
Because the
We have to give it
general
back.
fund went on record as having a purchase price of
Oh, okay.
$450,000 or whatever it was.
So we have to pay them whatever that price was.
Well, whatever the balance remaining is, general fund will get whatever's left.
I don't really remember what the motion is, but
The motion is give the motion, the intent of the motion is to give them, okay, permission to accept offers for selling the building, okay?
And to bring those back
And
to
to bring
us.
us back to us, yes.
And there was a second.
I think in that motion that it should be that we get a new appraisal of the building.
Well, we already included that, that's included in it. She's gonna do that anyway. Am I?
No.
Say so.
Okay.
$3,000.
Let me rephrase the motion.
If you're lucky.
I would like to make a motion that we give Ms. Hope permission to seek out buyers of the wooded building and also have a new appraisal of the building.
Okay. And seconder?
To that, yeah.
The second, or that's not probably it's late.
And bring that back to us, which we will have to do anyway. I know.
Of course, she's gonna do that anyway. That's a,
And the cost of the appraisal will be probably over $3,000.
I'd say 3 or 4, but then you're looking at spending $128,000, so.
True.
Yes, whatever.
Let the gas department have it appraised.
Good idea.
Greg's knew we could talk about
the motion meant whatever it takes to appraise it.
Okay. Mr. Sneed, did you have one more thing you want to say?
For the record. No, nothing.
Okay.
Ready to vote.
The last tax appraisal, how was that?
Last
Last tax appraisal.
That was recently.
That's the one that's on the tax records now, it's 374, but the one before that was 175. And it went up for some reason.
But the 374 was just last year, right?
It's the current one, yeah.
It was appraised by the state last year.
Is that fairly reliable?
Well, based on the 335 from 12 years ago, normally you would think it's probably not real far off.
I think you're wasting your money on the price.
You know, I would think that we would, since we got a couple of potential buyers, that we would entertain their offers first before we had an appraisal done. And if we have to actually go to a real estate listing, then potentially we should have a real appraisal done, in my opinion.
Mr. Nutty, did you want to speak on the subject?
I'm fine.
Okay. Now we have a motion on the floor. Did you want to amend?
Yeah, motion to amend
You want to amend?
Okay.
would be that, that we sell the building, but that we actively pursue any potential buyers that we know of right now before we actually have an appraisal done and see where that gets us to.
Okay.
So you what, you come back with some offers, hard dollars?
Yes.
He has to get a second.
Yeah, we
Well, I mean, just.
you want to see if it's in the ballpark.
I want to see what offers are out there.
Okay. Do I hear a second for his amendment?
Second.
Okay, there's a second.
Alderman Ellis?
Yes. Any more discussion?
Take it through.
Okay.
Head?
Yes.
Snyder?
Aye.
Mason?
Aye.
Hubbard?
Aye.
Ellis?
Aye.
Sneed?
Aye.
Pass 6-0.
Like the original.
Okay. Going back and voting on the original that Mr. Hubbard brought. Okay.
Snyder?
Oh, sorry, no.
No. Hubbard?
Aye.
Sneed?
No.
Head?
Yes.
I think we're all confused. Okay, stop. Let's take a break. Sorry. We don't know what we're voting on, and I certainly don't know what we're voting on.
Well, you amended the original motion
So
by
we-
taking out the appraisal.
Right.
And now, Mr. Hubbard's original motion is to accept offers.
Exactly.
To
Is
accept
that-
offers with no appraisal
Yes, yeah.
is
to
what we're
accept
voting on.
offers, Yes.
Okay. Will you call the roll again so we can vote correctly? I messed it all up.
Wait, the way I understood it is that Alderman Hubbard wanted to authorize offers, to get offers, and also to get new appraisals for the building.
Yes.
That's the way he amended, I mean, that's the way he.
Yeah, but it's been amended.
But it's been
Right,
amended,
exactly.
so it supersedes mine.
Okay, so that's what we're voting
Well,
on.
he-
Yes.
He, Mr. Head took the appraisal out of that motion. That's the only change.
Right.
Now, the motion is to accept offers, and that's what we're voting, the original motion, as amended.
As amended.
Okay.
That's where I messed up, and that's my fault.
Madam Chair.
It's after 9 o'clock.
Head,
Yes.
Ellis. Mason. Pass 4-6. I mean, I'm sorry, 4-2. A lot of people.
I've done it to her now.
4-2.
Oh, okay, we'll get back on track. 3.7, discuss and possible take action on the bids for the houses owned by the city on Queen Anne's Court. Mr. Nutty.
Well, thank you. I apologize. We overlooked having the bids in the packets. You did get them tonight. We've had 4 bidders. We accepted separate bids on each house, so you can award each bid separately, and I think that's a better option. And you have my memo, and I'll just leave it at that. I hope you had a chance to read my memo and my recommendation. If you seek to award, I mean, my suggestion is, it looks like we've got one here that at least made an attempt to recognize some value in the houses. My only concern with the bids is that no one seems to recognize that there's any value in these houses. And the fact is that the citizens of Springfield paid a lot of money for these houses, and now, we're not really, in my opinion, not getting any real serious offers on them.
Okay. You want to take them all together or each individually?
Individual.
Okay. 2502.
I make a motion that we accept the 15,000 on 2502.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Discussion? No? No discussion?
That's it. No, I thought you said second. You said I'm already second.
Then we'll take the highest bidder on 2502.
It's 15,000.
Roll call.
Ellis.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Uh,
Head.
Yes.
Pass 6-0.
Bring us the money, Mr. Goodman. Bring us the money.
Okay, moving on to 2506.
Is there something wrong with this house?
Mr. Goodman's in the audience. He wants-
For just a second, please, sir. Come on. You can come to the mic for just a second. Yes.
I'm one of the bidders. But we got, I got a round hole to square peg. I talked to Mr. Toothman about moving one of those houses to some property that I already have exists here in the city. He looked at the property, I looked at the property, I measured the property. After the bid, he said he would not be able to move that house to the property because the street is not wide enough to move the house. The house is wider than the street. So I would like to rescind my bid if I possibly could.
That we just voted on, okay.
Thank you, sir. I'll accept a rescinded motion.
Okay. I guess we have to have a second on the rescinding of the motion.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Can we do this?
I'm confused. Where are we about?
We're going back
looking
to-
at 2506.
We're going back to 2502.
2502.
2502.
So it can't be moved. It's too wide. Is that what you're saying?
Mr. Bother.
I don't know if it's necessary to take, if he rescinds his bid before anything's accepted, I think there's no bid.
Okay. So we don't need to vote on that. Okay, thank you. Moving on to 2506. Are we going to have the
No,
same
that
one?
clear-
Well, you
Okay.
still have 2 more bids on the table
Oh.
for 2502.
Okay, sorry.
I make a motion to put it on the floor, 2502, for discussion.
Motion back on the
Second.
floor. Thank you. Discussion?
Since I made the
Al?
motion, can I just, I made the
Yeah.
motion. Okay, let me shoot first. 15,000 was my limit. And I'm not gonna get insulted by the other low bids. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Sneed?
Mr. Ellis, the house has been determined to be too wide to get down the street by a house mover that's well versed and experienced in this. Would you recommend we just not even try to go down that road? We'll just get this over with on that one?
You're not talking about Queen Anne, he's talking about.
Where he was gonna put it.
Oh, the street that he's going to put it.
Yes, sir.
I thought that the issue was Queen Anne.
Correct me, that is right, it's another street, it's not Queen Anne. Pardon me? He's talking about the street where your house is. about.
Okay.
It's not Queen Anne.
Where you were moving it to?
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Herbert, your motion is just get on floor for discussion.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we drop to the second bidder, Parker, for 2502.
Motion on the floor. Take the second bid. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion?
15,000 was not adding insult to injury of the 250,000 that we spent. And I don't think we should get insulted by dropping down below that 15,000. I'd much rather, go ahead and utilize that big brand-new crane that we have out there in Public Works. That's all I have to say about the matter.
Mr. Nutty, you have an opinion?
Well, you know what my opinion is, I wouldn't award the bid to anybody. I think we've paid, like we said, over $250,000 for these houses, and now we're gonna give people houses for practically nothing. I mean, for a couple of $1,000s, just have the contractor tear them down as part of the contract. That's why we had them removed in the first place. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion?
Let's do it. Tear 'em down.
Question, please, ma'am.
Yes.
What does it cost to tear down these houses? I mean, I guess I'm comparing a little income versus no income.
Mr. Allen,
What's it cost? I know you gotta go to landfill. I know all that.
he's a thought, he can tell us, give us some guidance.
All the demolition material goes to the landfill. And of course, they haul it to a type class 4 landfill in Clarksville is what they do with it. But the block and the brick is hauled out to our dump site. Paul, you can help me, but generally it's run about $2,000 a house in demolition in disposal fees, 2 to 2,500. That's not counting our cost, our equipment, fuel, or hauling cost. That's just a disposal cost.
And then whatever you can tear it down if you've got enough trucks and people moving in a day or less than a day. So you're looking at a day's labor and equipment to pull it down.
May I ask him a question? Do you have the equipment to knock it down?
We've been tearing them down all the time for the last 5 years.
Since you have the equipment to tear them down, and you said our cost would probably be following with your route about what?
I couldn't tell you what the cost of equipment would be, but it would be another $2,000, $3,000, I'd say. So you're talking about $5,000, $6,000 would be cost, but that is budgeted cost too.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Sneed?
I have another statement. I'd rather use the funds that we're going to tear down houses or people trying to pay us money for to tear down houses that people don't want to pay us money for that are dilapidated. We got 3 people that spent a lot of time putting effort and time into looking at the situation to give us a bid. They've wasted the time of other people to come out there to give them estimates about moving. They've already wasted the city's time about codes, requirements, measurements, electric department. There's a lot of time been put into it. And you're just going to sit here and say no to all these people all the time and cut your nose off, spite your face, because you're insulted by the bids. Now, if the people move the house, there's sales tax involved, there's labor, paychecks, salary involved, permits. And I make a motion that we sell all 3 houses to Mr. Parker, who is the next highest bidder on all 3 houses.
For $7,000 for 3 houses?
Be done with it. That's my motion.
No, sir.
Yeah, over
told them
13,000.
Because they heard the message loud and clear. Loud and clear. You know, $15,000 to $25,000, people get insulted. You know, I'm not going to insult the taxpayers again, okay? If we can't sell them to recoup their $250,000, then get rid of them, okay? But to insult the taxpayers again and then to get slapped in the face again, no, we can't do that. So we can't do that.
Okay, more
How
discussion?
long will it take on the move if it's sold to get rid of it? Get it out the way?
They got 90 days in the contract.
More questions? We have a motion on the floor to accept the second bid of Mr. Parker's. Mr. Ellis.
Trying to address the problem. Mr. Goodner had bid $15,000, and I guess we can accept whatever we want to be honest. I mean, whichever bids we want to, other than as long as they're the low bids or high bids, whichever you want to say. I would like to see us get $10,000 to $15,000 per house. I don't know that we can do that, but and Mr. Parker may not do that. I don't know, but he will have time you move it and get it set up. He's going to have a pretty nice house, a very nice house, for $45,000 to $50,000, something like that. I mean, I think that's correct, something like, I don't know, I really don't know what to say. I'm through.
What to say is this, simple as this. The bidders knew the predicament that we were in. And to try to think that we're so desperate, see, I can't go along with it. We're so desperate, we're just gonna sell it. You see, I'm gonna be a good alderman tonight, okay? I refuse to yield to people who want to insult our integrity. We said 10 to 15,000, I'll go along with you, Mr. Ellis, but nothing lower.
But we didn't put a minimum on them.
I tried to at the 15,000 minimum before.
We probably should have done that.
But look at all this 800, 450. Come on, man.
There wasn't any minimum. That was
Mr. Head?
fair.
Is there something wrong with 2506 that made those bids
The
low?
only thing that I was told, because of the area that is low down, it's in a hole, that it's more expensive to move. But that's what I was told by first to move. That's the only thing. As far as the house, I don't think nothing's wrong with it.
I guess we're going to get some money or it's going to cost us. We need to make that decision. Any more discussion, Mr. Head?
Okay, are we still on 2502?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just
Each
that.
individual.
And is there any motion on the floor?
There is a motion on the floor to accept the second bid of Mr. Parker.
And that's been seconded?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we ready for roll call?
Right.
Okay.
Snyder.
Aye.
Hubbard.
No.
Sneed.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Ellis.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Pass 5-1.
Okay, moving on to 2506.
Make a motion to sell 2506 to Mr. Parker for $1,001.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Discussion.
Yes, sir.
For $1,000?
Just get it over with, Ms. Hubbard. We can done with it for
Get it over with?
It was,
Are you Mr.
it was
Parker?
publicly advertised.
Mr. Parker, do you see what our dilemma is?
Okay.
You know, no offense, but we just can't be,
It's our fault. We didn't put a minimum on it.
huh?
We didn't put a minimum on it.
We didn't even give the employees a decent pay raise this year, and you want to spend money, tear down houses when people are trying to pay us for it.
Any
I
more?
don't like it either, but it was publicly advertised and bid.
I don't like it, but a little money more or costing. Ready for roll call?
Can we rush up the tab over?
I
Does it give
didn't
us
hear a
motion?
second on that.
Oh, you didn't have a second?
No. Did anybody second that motion? I didn't hear a second.
Who made the motion, Mr. Sneed?
Yes.
Mr. Sneed made the motion, there was not a second on the floor. Do I hear a second to consider 2506?
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Yes, is this the one that's got the garage?
This is the
This
one
is the one.
In the low spot?
The lower one.
2502, we had the garage, that was
Is that
on
the one that Billy
cul-de-sac.
has? Billy's,
Okay. Ready for roll call, gentlemen? Ms.
Okay.
Watson?
Head,
Yes.
Snyder,
Aye.
Mason,
No.
Hubbard,
no.
Ellis. Alderman Ellis.
No.
Sneed.
Aye.
Tied 3-3, which requires it's a fail vote.
Does not pass.
Okay, moving on to
Tear it down.
2508.
2508, I'll make a motion that we'll sell it to Mr. Parker for $5,000,
Okay,
but not 2506.
Second.
okay, we have a first and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, Ms. Watson?
Ellis.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Pass 6-0.
Thank you, gentlemen. 3 point.
I'll make a motion that we rebid 2506.
We can we? Can we go back and do that?
I second that.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a first and a second to rebid 2506.
And Alderman Sneed, you second that?
Is there a minimum bid on your motion?
5,000.
5,000.
Second the amendment.
Okay.
5,000.
Any discussion, gentlemen?
Yes, I would like to make an amendment to 2506.
Okay.
If we don't get the $5,000 bid, we'll just direct Mr. Ellis to tear it down.
Okay.
Can I get a second on that one?
Second. Second the amendment.
To the amendment. Any more discussion? Okay, let's make sure I get this one right now. We are voting on the amendment.
The amendment would go along with Mr. Ed, sell it for $5,000, and if we don't get the $5,000 bid, then we'll
Okay?
tear it down.
Roll call, please. Thank you.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Ellis.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Pass 6-0.
Okay. We're going back and vote on the original. Correct?
Yes.
Any discussion on the original? Call the roll, please.
Head.
Yes.
Sneed.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Ellis.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Pass 6-0.
Thank you. Moving on to 3.8, discuss and possible take action on allowing developers golf privileges at the golf course to assist in marketing the sales of lots and development. Mr. Nutting. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to get this on the floor.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Nutting.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is to pretty much parallels an agreement that Tony and Denise Doris had with the city. There was a 15-year limit, and time has elapsed. Some new people are developing sections of the legacy. The question has been raised, would you do something similar to allow us to take prospective or purchasers of lots or homes for one round of golf if they're not from Robertson County, they're not familiar with the legacy. So I put together a policy that defines what a developer is and a guest, and I think otherwise you get to play one time. You have to register at the golf course. I think it would be a help to, getting some sales going in the legacy.
And this is to market outside Robertson County.
Correct.
Discussion, gentlemen.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
In reading this, it says take action on allowing, we do have a motion.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Allowing developers golfing privileges at the golf course. Now, do we have some further descriptions of this or explanation of this? This tells me, what it says to me is that they can just play anytime they want to.
No, it's very restricted.
But where, is that in another?
It's in the policy. It's was provided in the packet. It's
My
developer
iPad
has okay. It's a developer. You have to be the person in charge of developing a section from construction to build out. Essentially, a guest you can only be a prospective home builder seeking to purchase one or more improved lots under the ownership and control of the developer.
Once a year?
Or prospective, no, just one time period. It's not once a year, it's one time period. You ought to be able to look at the golf course and make up your mind at that time. And then, or a prospective home buyer interested in purchasing a developer constructed home. Not anybody's home, but a developer constructed home that they're going to build or that has been constructed and has never been occupied. And the developer names representatives. The developer can play or can have a person who works for him do that. They have to register at the clubhouse. Everybody has to register, produce a photo ID. It only deals with the greens fee and the carts. It's not good for food or range balls or merchandise in the clubhouse. And once you played, once that person is registered, that's it. And the privilege goes away when the last home in the section of the subdivision is sold.
Okay. More questions? More questions?
Move for approval.
Okay. Call for a vote?
Ready to vote.
Mason.
Aye.
Ellis.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder.
Yes.
Passed 6-0.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to 4.0, the consent docket. How would you like to take this?
Move for total approval of the whole docket.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to take it all.
Yes, ma'am.
You have you're seconding?
No, ma'am.
Yes.
I thought you said have a question. Excuse me.
Okay, Mr. Hubbard has a motion on the floor to take it all of the consent doc together. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis, questions?
On this docket is at least one thing, and I was just looking through here. This is what I'm using tonight. The golf course, a bunker rake. I don't know whether that's handheld or what it is.
It's a tractor.
Yeah.
It's
a
a tractor.
mechanized piece of equipment.
They need it.
Do they run that through the
Sand traps in the bunker.
Yes. Has to be done every couple of days. Should be done every day. Any more questions?
Let the kindergarten class go out there and play in it and pick up the trash.
It's not trash, it's the rocks that come to the surface. I think that,
I got one compliment. Sparks roof
yeah,
took care of me.
I agree.
They're very good.
Okay. Are we ready to vote, gentlemen?
Ready to vote.
Call the roll, Ms. Watson.
Snyder.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Ellis.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
Thank you. Mr. Nutting.
Thank you. I just have one small item. Regret to inform you that Mr. Tracy Langston has resigned from the airport board, and so we will have to come up with a replacement at the November or December meeting. And that's all I have.
And we also have a meeting on November the 5th, a special call meeting at 7 p.m. to discuss realizing Robertson County, and those folks are going to be meeting with us. Any more discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
I would be remiss if I would not talk about this. The city has been plagued with suicides and murders. And I think that we need to send a message from the board appealing to our citizens, understand me, to put forth every effort that they can to dissuade these young men from taking those measures. My recommendation that every alderman, kind of police their wards and talk to their citizens and try to help out, because it's a problem. It's a problem with conflict resolution, and these young men cannot find their way. Of course, it just makes us, we're sick and tired of it. It puts a black mark on the city because only a few is doing it. But we have to encourage the citizens to step up. Now, I'm going to say something that is not going to be politically correct, but the victims that are perpetrating these crimes, then their relatives and I have to say it, their communities need to really stop allowing such behaviors, understand me, to happen. Because it's terrible. It's terrible. Every time you turn around, this is happening. And this is not Springfield. This is a beautiful city. There's a city that offers everybody a chance to grow, but we still have a few elements, understand me, that hadn't grown up. I'm going to urge the churches, number one, okay, to step up. Business leaders, step up. Teachers, step up. Police chief is getting run to death, okay?
He is.
And we can't just sweep it under the rugs. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say this because I know, because I'm in the trenches, been in the trenches of Springfield for 30 years. This is a result of crack-affected babies. They don't know how to resolve conflict in an orderly manner. Okay, and we have to, because it's just so sad.
It is, Mr. Hubbard. You're right.
It's so sad. The last murder, I gave the eulogy, and it's just sad. See, and so we need to step up the plate, and we know some of the players who to talk to. Most of the gentlemen around the board. Let's talk to these players. Let's go to Reverend. Let's go to these community leaders and say, stop talking about it and be about it, because I'm sick and tired of putting this ugly mark on Springfield. And you have to understand this too, and I checked into this, with Tennessee being number one as the most violent state in the nation, the mid-state area is right there. And quite naturally, little old Springfield, am I right, Chief? We per capita, it's pitiful. 54 in how many years, Paul?
22, and we're not even through to the 22nd year yet.
54.
It is sad, Mr. Hubbard, and I thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you, and come out of Ivy Towers and wake up, understand me, and put pressure on the people who can put pressure on these young boys.
Anyone else?
In reference to that, the reason there's so much crack being used is too many government programs providing all the services, food, housing, and everything else, cell phones, and they use their disposable income to buy the drugs. If it wasn't so many government benefits, then they wouldn't have the money to buy all these extracurricular activity.
And you're halfway right, but see, this city, number one, this city affords people not to be on welfare and stuff. Okay, now for those who want to be on this, understand, choose to be on this. Now I got to give Springfield some credit. If you want to work, Work is here.
I've had ads in the paper trying to get taxi.
Well, but just hear what I'm saying.
Well, and gentlemen, you're both right, and we could discuss this for the rest of the night. Yes, Mr. Sneed.
Have any questions about the new department, get with Mr. Nutting.
Okay.
Sunshine laws prevent us from talking, get with him. I'll get with you in a week. Get with him in the next few days, and I'll get with you in a week.
Okay. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sneed.
Yes, ma'am.
Come out on the street with me. Yes, ma'am.